I'll take a burger, medium rare, side salad, and a nap, please. Of all the things that can help us save time, increase productivity, and bring happiness, naps fall pretty low on the priority list. Most of us wouldn't even know how. My next guest is a psychiatrist, yes, a psychiatrist, who views naps as medicine for your brain. With both an MD and a master's in theology, he is a psychiatrist who treats the soul, integrating neuroimaging, psychopharmacology, and evidence-based psychotherapies. Today, he's going to help us learn the why and the how of napping like a pro as we ask the question, does exhaustion really equal value? This is the Curious Introvert podcast with me, Meredith. Around here, we explore taboo questions and societal blind spots. Please help me welcome the man changing the way we do mental health, bridging together the philosophical, the practical, and the medical, Dr. Hector Rodriguez. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I'm excited to talk about napping. I think the obvious question is there a measurable effect from naps on emotional regulation and resilience?
The short answer is definitely. I mean, have you ever not slept well the night before? Forget about napping, but not slept well, and how'd you feel the next day? Probably a little less patient
Yes.
with most people. Think of napping or sleeping as the brain's way to restore the hippocampus, which is the big area of our brain that controls memory and learning, begins to organize the learned information for that day. So by napping, we allow the brain to kind of do that right through your middle of the day. And it's just, there's so many benefits from doing that. And sometimes a practical approach is to go and take a break and nap.
That's so interesting that your first answer was like, yeah, when you sleep bad, then you kind of have a bad attitude the rest of the day, which I agree. But sometimes when you nap, you feel hungover. So is that just because we're doing it wrong?
Yes. And it really depends on the amount of time that we spend in the nap. Depending on what we want to do is what I tell people, okay, sleep this amount of time and actually put a timer on. So studies have shown that between 10 to 20 minutes, you're going to improve things like alertness and focus because your brain doesn't go into deeper stages of sleep. If we want to go to things like memory consolidation, so like kind of sorting out what you learned up to that point in the day, then 60 minutes is much better. 90 minutes is where now we go into a full sleep cycle, including REM. So once we start including REM, this enhances more things like creative problem solving. So it depends on the amount of time is definitely one of the factors to let us know, okay, why am I doing this nap?
I never thought of it as, when you have like an air fryer or like an Instapot. I don't have an air fryer, but I have had an Instapot. And it's like, there's little settings there on what you want to accomplish. Are you making yogurt today? Then you have like the dial for yogurt. But are you making rice? Rice and yogurt are definitely two different dials. And you mix them up, you have nothing that's edible. But you're kind of saying like naps are the same way. If you just want to, like say you were a truck driver and you needed to increase your alertness, you could pull into a rest area, take a 10 to 20 minute nap, and that would increase your alertness. But if you're a college student and you're trying to up your memory before a test, taking a 60-minute nap would have that function?
Correct. So it really depends on what am I trying to achieve and what do I want? What is the purpose of me taking this medication, right? And I see it that way. Now, the feeling of hangover usually happens if we break the middle of a cycle. So if the person already has poor sleep the night before, it kind of triggers the amygdala. The amygdala, think of it like the fire alarm of our brain. So it starts now producing dysregulated emotions. So the person then doesn't really have good benefits because it's triggering or activating the amygdala.
So if we want to nap well, then timing matters. Does any of the other stuff matter like it does when we are sleeping at night, like, a dark room, a cooler room, no screen time, stuff like that?
For naps, it's not something that we want to do. When it comes to like, having really dark room or like the temperature, that's more for the longer sleep cycles that we want to occur at night. The problem starts occurring when we have poor sleep in general. So, napping in that sense, it's not a good idea. So if the person has poor sleep hygiene the night before or just has acquired poor sleep habits, they're going to be in this, problems with like insomnia and like not restorative sleep. So that's where napping is not a good idea, because then what you're doing is you're pushing the next night to also have a more distorted or broken down sleep cycle.
Oh, okay. Because at first I wasn't following you because I'm thinking, wait a minute, if you have a poor night's sleep, wouldn't you want to nap? But it's better to kind of respect the cycle.
Yeah. So you don't want to create an imbalance between your nighttime sleep and then your naps. So again, in this case, when I'm saying let's do naps, it's already having the assumption that the person has good sleep hygiene and is not suffering from things like insomnia. Because then you can have too much napping during the day, and what it ends up doing is the next night, it's going to be even more broken up. So with people with problems with sleep, no matter what it is, whether it's problems falling asleep or staying asleep, most of the patients that I see have problems staying asleep. So they have a dysregulated circadian rhythm. A lot of the times it could be for hormonal issues, and maybe that's something we can get into. But those people, you definitely don't want to have them napping. So even though they're dying to, I tell them, listen, this is not where napping is restorative, because that's where we have to have most of our energy for sleep to happen during the nighttime.
So for people who do have good sleep hygiene, is there a curfew? Because you know how you have a caffeine curfew? Because the half-life of caffeine will mess up that sleep quality. Is there the equivalent for napping? Like you shouldn't nap past 3 o'clock or something?
Yeah, think of the nap window midday. A lot of the people that I work with tend to be high-functioning executives, people that have a lot of things on their plate. I first focus, and I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this because I don't want people to get mixed messages about napping is good, even if you're sleeping bad. I first have to restore their nighttime sleep, right? Because what sometimes happens is if you take naps past 3-4 o'clock, now you're risking your start time for that next night. And most of these people nowadays, I don't think you have to be an executive to have a hyperactive limbic system, which is like basically stress, right? Fight or flight and all of that. You're already risking pushing back your start time. So you don't want to add another risk factor for doing that, because whatever we're doing then during the day can have I call it like a tail, right? An issue into the next sleep cycle. So we have to first restore the nighttime sleep, and the start time could be pushed back.
So you would say between like 11 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Correct.
Okay.
Think of it like lunchtime.
Like lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
What about mental health? Are we all just basically like nap deprived man babies? You know what I mean? Like, is that will this create world peace if we all just nap?
Definitely, it will be very helpful for emotional regulation. So when we say mental health, I'm really focusing on those people that are struggling with lots of stress, anxiety, high cortisol levels. So their napping could be extremely beneficial. And again, looking back at the time, how long the naps should be, because it gives them like a reset button in that emotional regulation. But again, most of those people already have poor nighttime sleep. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be really balanced. When we do that, it doesn't just dysregulate or create, an imbalance in their sleep circadian rhythm. It breaks it up. So it becomes fragmented. And we don't want fragmented sleep, because it's not just about the length of time that those, like, let's say if someone tells me, oh, I sleep for 2 hours, then I wake up. then 3 more hours and I wake up. It's not just that. When we do shorter kind of naps throughout the night, so it's fragmented, the person is more likely to then not go into the deeper stages of sleep.
Interesting.
So it's not restorative. When
So
we
almost
go,
like the bad effects accumulate.
right. And then what you're doing is by adding a nap for that particular situation is you're just worsening the insomnia. And you definitely don't want to do that. But nap is a great tool for you to use once the sleep at night is self-regulated.
You mentioned like if you have healthy sleeping, then napping is a tool for you. And I can't help but wonder if we should like briefly explore if you don't have healthy sleeping, because I'm wondering if my audience listening, they'd be like, well, wait, I have sleep problems. So what about me? But maybe start with like 2 buckets. Let's do 2 buckets. Bucket 1, what can people who are experiencing poor sleep do in order at home without outside intervention to improve their sleep quality? And then bucket number 2 is, what's their first step to loop in a professional? Should it be a kind of a functional type of psychiatrist like you, or sleep neurologist?
Most people in the United States don't sleep well. Like most people just don't sleep well. People think that they do. People think that because I slept 8 hours, I'm good, right? I always pay attention to, first of all, how long did it take you to fall asleep? How long did it take you to wake up? And also how early you're waking up, right? So how short are we cutting our 8-9 hour sleep window? And I say that because we've always heard 7 to 8. I'm more on the side of 8 to 9 hours of sleep, but it has to be quality, deep sleep, right? We're able to go into the sleep cycle. The first big kind of warning sign is I'm waking up too early, right? I don't know, for whatever reason, at 4 a.m, boop, I'm awake. And then I can't fall back to sleep. Or if I do, I'm just tossing around and moving around. That's number one. The other one is I wake up the next day and I'm still tired. And my favorite is tired, but wired, right? So it's this like kind of hypervigilant mode, or this internal, just, I don't like to use the words anxiety, but it kind of feels like this internal like restlessness, but the person is tired. They can't focus, right? They can't really get through their day completely. And then they start having here and there memory problems. Well, what the first thing I said about sleep is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a big memory place. So a lot of the time when people are first having these memory issues, that's a sign that you got to look at your sleep quality. What's going on in your sleep? Because most of the time, that's where it starts. The pushing earlier wake up time, most of the time, that's high cortisol. So cortisol is supposed to spike around 6, 7, 8 a.m. It starts trending back down. Cortisol is supposed to be like our natural coffee. It's supposed to wake us up. Cortisol gets a lot of bad rap because it's considered the stress hormone, but we need it to be elevated in the morning. The problem is that over time, that spike of cortisol in the morning starts kind of flattening out. So it starts going lower and lower and lower, and then it kind of shifts towards 6, 7, 8 p.m. It starts spiking. So it's like this shift of the curve that we definitely don't want. So then what's the next thing that happens? I can't fall back. I can't fall asleep at night, or it takes me a long time, or I lay there and I'm just thinking about all the stuff that happened in that day. If you're not able to just sit down before bed and write things down, or like journal or something like that, to kind of like leave it there, or you're doing that and you're still going back to bed and it's like, I can't stop thinking about what happened that day, or that problem, or that coworker, or someone at work, or something with your kids, that cortisol is flipped. Because now your body's kind of telling your brain, hey, you got to wake up. You got to be on alert now because we got to problem solve now. And no, that's the time that I got to start getting ready, right? Winding down, chilling, so I can get my brain and body ready for that night to go to sleep. That's where checking hormones is crucial. And when I see that, that's when I'm like, okay, you got to go to a professional. And a professional, it's not always someone that you might expect. I mean, I'm a psychiatrist, and people usually have this idea that a psychiatrist just treats, mental conditions, right? And I
Right.
kind of hate that term. I rather call it like brain conditions. They don't think of a psychiatrist as someone who can regulate their sleep. They usually go to a different specialist. But now what we're seeing is there's rise in psychiatrists who are studying the endocrine system. Well, every signal from the endocrine system, which is basically our hormones, it starts in the brain. So if there's like a misfiring or like bad circadian rhythm, that tells a part of your brain to like throw out hormones maybe at the wrong time. And that's where then it worsens and it just makes it worse and worse and worse, your circadian rhythms. And we're talking about sleep today, but that can kind of spill over into your appetite, your sexual appetite, which is libido, into your mood, your energy. It starts kind of all over time messing up. So if you start seeing issues in all those areas, libido, mood, energy, motivation, right? Appetite for food, we definitely have to see a professional because there's already a circadian rhythm dysregulation. And most likely it all started with a really bad night's sleep. And not just one, multiple.
So, how do people know which professional to go to? Because, you're talking about psychiatry. We all know all psychiatrists not created equal. You have a really cool functional vibe going on, and I love that. But I don't know, there's not a lot of you everywhere. You said hormones, so some people might want to go to a hormone clinic, for example, but that's the only tool in their toolbox. Therefore, if you only have a hammer, everything's a nail. As a sleep neurologist, those tests, man, they really rack them up. And so is there like is there a flow chart of decision to help people decide which professional that they should go to? Because when you're not sleeping well, you're not performing well, it affects your decision-making power, but it also affects your willpower battery. And so you're more likely to have experience medical burnout if you're already not sleeping. So I feel like you got one or two shots there. So how would someone determine which way to go for them?
Start off with, is there any physical sensations or changes in that? Right? That's usually when I say, okay, start with a neurologist because there might be something else going on that is affecting the rest of the nervous system, right?
So like if numb fingers or something.
Right. I would start there to see what's going on. Now, if you already have a pre-existing medical condition, like an autoimmune condition that can also affect sleep, then I would start with my rheumatologist. When to go to a psychiatrist or start looking for a functional psychiatrist is your behavior. The circadian rhythms are off, right? And most of the time, that's what people don't do, right? They go to the neurologist or they go to their OBGYN if it's a woman, and they don't make the connection that this is a behavioral change. Your circadian rhythms are affecting the way that you're performing. That's a behavior. You got to go to psychiatry. Now, which psychiatrist, that you need to shop around. You got to look at their reviews. You got to find out, how do they work? How do they think? Now, you can do a consultation. Some doctors today offer like a 15-minute consultation so you can see what they do. I do that all the time because I might say, hey, I'm a good fit for you, or I might not be. I think you need to go to this other person. So that's where quick consults you can do. In theory, your primary care should be that funnel to tell you where to go, right? But yes, that's not always the case, right?
No.
They usually start by discarding physical causes of these changes. And our medical system has been, designed, created to work that way. And then you go to the specialist or the subspecialist. And by the time you go to a subspecialist, which is like a psychiatrist who studies only sleep, for example, you've already been through a lot of people, right? So when, at the end of the day, what happens is this a symptom of, or is this the cause that is changing all these behaviors? But only a doctor can kind of help you determine that with a proper assessment. So yes, in theory, your primary care has to figure out, is this just a symptom of your autoimmune condition? poor sleep, right? Or is the sleep that is causing all these behavioral changes?
Yeah. Okay. So what if the person knows they have a form of sleep apnea? They're not breathing, maybe they use a CPAP, but their sleep is still disturbed. They're waking up in the middle of the night, or, there's other problems related to or caused by sleep apnea. What specialist should they go to?
That's when I would look for a functional psychiatrist, because they're going to
Oh,
look at everything under the sun that is worsening or is causing the sleep issue. It's not the apnea, because if they're getting treated for it, it should resolve, right? So if it's not, you got to find out, okay, what's another cause of this? And that's the problem with our medical system. We're not trained, or we're not training physicians to look for causes. We look for a problem, a symptom, and we diagnose it, and then we go there. It's like chest pain. I come to you and I have chest pain. That could be a bunch of different things. So your primary care is supposed to kind of sort out what it is and what could be or what is not. So you start with some kind of basic workup. If you discard that this is not acid reflux, okay, we're not going to see a gastroenterologist,
yeah.
right? Maybe this is a cardiac issue. Then we go to the cardiologist. It's the same idea. So that person, in theory, has to kind of decide on their preliminary workup what things are most likely not.
Okay. I feel very embarrassed to say that I didn't realize that was the function of a primary care doctor. I only have one experience with one as an adult, and she was kind of dismissive. I was telling her all the problems, and she was like, I won't even say what she said, because I'm not even gonna give it that time, but it was not good. And
Yeah.
she was supposedly like a functional doctor. But that just goes to show you kind of have to be the point person for your own health and step into that role. But it is hard to do if you're not sleeping well.
Right. And yes, unfortunately, that's the most common interaction with primary cares, even functional medicine doctors. I think it comes down, and I had a patient tell me that yesterday. She used a Spanish word because she's in Mexico, but it's wanting to care. And I was having this conversation with a colleague. She was like, "Oh, you're a really good doctor, really good psychiatrist." I'm like, "I think I am, but I think I'm much better at caring."
Mm-hmm.
And you have to look for a clinician who cares, who's like, "Okay, give me a minute here," right? But we're being trained to know it all. We are being trained to, if you don't know the answer, figure it out, say something. They don't really tell you that, but that's what kind of happens. I prefer saying, you know what? I can't figure this out today. Let me figure it out, and then let's meet again. Or we've looked at all these things, and I don't know, I feel something else is missing. I don't have to tell you right there and then. So in medicine, we're kind of pressured to come up with something now. And it's not just our educational system, it's our patients. They want a pill right now and then. And something like sleep, I mean, look at what we talked about today in napping and the benefits of it and how it could actually be bad for certain people. That's more than 30 minutes with you.
Right.
I have to see you multiple times to see what is going on here. That's why I tell my patients and anybody I talk to, like, we're all little puzzles. And today I might put together this whole piece of the puzzle, but I'm missing a bunch of other stuff. You can't expect me to solve that whole puzzle in 30 minutes. Or because we did one lab work. That's it. You know, sometimes it happens, but let's face it, that's not reality. So something like sleep that can affect or alter a bunch of other areas of our lives, you have to give us some time to figure that out. So going back to which doctor, who do I go to? Look for someone who thinks that way and is not ashamed to say, I don't know the answer to that today. Give me a little bit of time or get this done. I'm suspecting it could be this, right? But let me tell you, we get pressured by clients, by patients. They're like, "Oh, you don't know?" I'm like, "No, you want me to figure it out right now?" And then the funny thing that happens is they don't want medicine, but they do. They want a quick fix, and it's like this is not a quick fix thing. This is like we got to look at your sleep hygiene. We got to look at your hormones, and then I have to regulate them. That takes time, right? But my best patients are the ones that are like, okay, I know this is difficult. Let's do this together. And that's how I am, how I think. And when clients come to me, I'm like, listen, once we figure it out, we're done. You're not going to be this whole like, I'll see you next month or see you next month or see you next month. No. We're going to figure it out. Once we do, go run with it. This is what I want you to do because we figured out what the cause was. But it's always looking for the cause.
Hey there. It looks like you're liking this episode so far. Since you appreciate nuance and curiosity, I'd like to officially invite you to my private Facebook group. In there, you can give me direct feedback on episodes, vote on future topics, and participate in giveaways. Search MFR Curious Insiders on Facebook or click the link in the show notes to request to join. It's free. Okay, back to the show. Okay, so I got it. So I think for someone who's trying to vet their doctor for their sleeping problem, you should call, speak to the highest ranking nurse that there is, and ask him or her, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is Dr. So-and-so's give a damn? Is it good? Is it low? Okay, great. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are they to answer, I don't know, let me look into that? Or how likely are they just to give you some sort of like bullshit answer?
Yeah.
Because you know what? Nurses never lie.
Yeah.
They always tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to DIY sleep improvement. It sounds like, most people need that professional help, but can you just give a couple of DIY things to improve sleeping at night for those who are struggling?
Sleep hygiene has a lot of different to-dos. Turn off the lights, have the room as dark as possible. Don't eat after a certain time, right? My DIY, it depends on you, right? So I start with, okay, what is your day like? What are your brain's demand for your day? And then based on that, we create our own sleep hygiene because people can actually stick to something that is theirs, that they came up with it together with me, that they're like, doctor, I am never going to put on soothing music. That's not me. So I'm not going to tell them, okay, put in soothing music. Like, that's not them. That's not you, right? So if it's not you, we got to create our own sleep hygiene that is practical and you can do it. That's number one. Number two, just try to do one of those things a week. We're changing a routine. We're changing habits. You can't just come in there and say, oh, we're going to do all these things. That's not realistic. And I tell them, you and I both know that's not going to happen. They're like, no, it's not going to happen. And I'm like, okay. So then I go, okay, what is one thing that you can apply this week? They're like, no gym after 6 p.m. Because I tell them that. Try to do no crazy activities, physical activities after 6 p.m. If your ideal time to go to bed is by 10, 11 o'clock at night, don't do that. Leave a good window, 4 to 5 hours before any strenuous physical activity. Okay, that I can do. All right, awesome. When we meet next time, what were you able to implement? Oh, I did the gym thing. And I also got to do my room is all dark. I bought shades, blackout shades on Amazon. Awesome. I didn't tell you to do that. You went ahead and did it. But the first time we put together the sleep hygiene, we laid them out, right? These are 5, 6 things that we're going to do. But just do one. Work on one. Once you create your own, it becomes much easier for you to actually stick to it. And then it just automatically starts fixing your sleep.
I love that. I love how I should have expected that answer from you. I love that because there's so many, nothing new under the sun when it comes to sleep hygiene tips, right? I mean, I love, Sleep Smarter, the book. I love Sean Stevenson. He's, chef's kiss, but there's really nothing, the way he explains it may be new, but there's really nothing new under the sun except for the way that we execute what we will, implement into our lives. So thank you for that. Okay, so now let's go back to the people who are sleeping well. Assume that the people who are struggling, they're all caught up. Everyone's sleeping great. Are the benefits of napping acute or do they accumulate over time?
There's definitely changes in the first, I would say, month. You're not going to notice this like brilliance by doing one day, right? It's also a habit formation, right? We're now going to create a habit of not putting my brain in this burnout lane. And now I got to shift it to rest, chill, and then keep going, right? So that change, the habit, lifestyle change takes time. Can it benefit them in the long term? Definitely. Because what ends up happening is now your brain has a new way to reset. Your brain now has a new way to press that button and say, I'm going to, clean out of all these toxins that I was exposed to today. Now we're going to see lowering things like risks for dementia, for example, right? Because I'm not putting this brain in exhaust mode where my cortisol levels are going to shoot up and I'm going to have all these antibodies attacking, right? That's not going to happen anymore. So now I'm reducing the long-term risks for memory problems.
Have you ever seen someone come off a prescription because they started napping?
Yeah, I do it all the time.
You say it like no big deal. I mean, that sounds like a big deal to me. Well, what happened? What kind of prescription did they come off of?
They're usually put on benzos. That's the most common thing. Or like what we call the Z drugs, which is like little brothers to the benzos. I'm not a fan of those at all. If I leave them, it's for like a short period because of panic attacks or something like that. Kind of like albuterol for asthmatics. We're going to use it when we need to, because we need to abort a panic attack. Benzos dysregulate our sleep architecture. So my goal is, again, we want to prevent dementia. I got to get you off of that. It depresses our nervous system. It depresses our overall brain functions. In the moment of a panic attack, yeah, it's very helpful. But in the long-term use, that's the big problem. So my goal when I see a patient with 2 or 3 sleep medications, first of all, I got to find out what is causing this bad sleep. And I start working towards, let's eliminate one of the biggest issues, which is your benzo. Benzos, what they do, since they dysregulate your sleep architecture, then the next day you're all slow, kind of dumb, right? Because it turns off the prefrontal cortex as well, which is like executive functions, right? So I need to get you off of that. And then we go into the napping, because now we're going to restore what we've been kind of messing up for a long time.
That's so interesting. You mentioned earlier that most of your clients are like these high achieving alpha type. I don't know that I would describe myself that way, but I definitely see napping as like something I do when I'm vulnerable. I'm sick, or, maybe I had like a really emotional thing happen. And then that's when I revert back to toddler protocol. Not when I'm like, oh, I've got this really important thing going on. I need to really sharpen my iron, Do you have a hard time convincing your clients who are those high achieving A types that napping is the ultimate biohack?
Lately, not so much. A few years ago, yes. Because again, we're now working with a generation who's paying attention to these buzzwords and saying, hey, let's optimize my brain function. And those things are kind of like trending. So people are trying to figure out how to do that, right? I hear so-and-so is improving their productivity because they went on this month retreat to do that, right? And what do? They revert to those, and I love you called it that, toddler, what was it? Protocol?
Protocol, yeah.
But think about what you said about when we get sick. Why does the body tells me go to sleep, go rest, right? When we're sick, the body is in stress. When we have surgery, the body goes through stress. When we're going through an emotional problem, the body's saying stress, freak out. The sympathetic nervous system is activated. What it's trying to do is shift to the parasympathetic, which is calm, relax, because we need to now focus all of our energy on killing this virus or getting rid of this emotional issue that we're dealing with right now. So go rest, because your cognitive brain, which is what we've been talking about, memory, focus, concentration, all that stuff, needs to rest. So I can now put a lot of my energy, want to look at it that way, into my limbic system, my emotional brain, or put most of my body energy towards my immune system. So when the body is asking for sleep, it's because it's under stress. It's at war. So that area needs to occur. So then I could be clear. So I could be better. So why does my body demand, or it pushes me into like going, sleeping, and napping? Because it's going through stress. So the same concept, we just copy and paste into my stressful job. And let's face it, today in the United States, most people are living in burnout mode. They're not even like getting there. No, they are. And they're running that flat tire for years. And then we wonder why our dementia rates are increasing. Our mental health issues are rising more than before. We blame the pandemic. I think the pandemic just kind of pushed it a little bit more because it was a stressful time.
Yeah.
So it triggered a lot of people. But the pandemic itself didn't just do that. I think it got that flat tire and lit it on fire. And now people are keep going. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, this thing is on fire. Chill.
Yeah.
We need to rest.
So for the people who do resist napping as a practice, is it like a age generational thing, or do you find it to be a cultural thing?
It's a little bit of both because it depends on the individual, right? Some of my clients who are older generation, but they're coming around noticing that, wait, I need to improve my productivity. And I've heard that this is effective, right? Younger executives or younger people that are going into the workforce are realizing that already, right? So they hear it, they know. The thing is that I think they're doing it wrong, but that might be another podcast. They're doing it wrong, right? And then the part about being cultural, it comes down to their desire to achieve, right? Some cultures, and I do see people from different countries, have different views of what is success, what is successful. So if I have this group of individuals who grew up in Mexico, but they come from a family of entrepreneurs, they come from a family of business owners, and they're probably pressured by their family to succeed because in their culture, having a lot of money and status and whatever is success. Then they put a lot of emphasis on all these tools to keep that going. So then they really value any kind of tip or work that we can do to enhance their probability of staying fit, right? Staying, and I say fit, I'm talking about mentally fit to continue in that trajectory, right? In success, because keeping their status and their company is important. So again, it kind of varies. I think it's not a continuous like improvement overall. I think some groups are more aware of it than others. And to say that is mostly generational or cultural, it's kind of difficult to separate it that way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I could see why you're not able to say, oh, yes, absolutely, boomers are the worst or something like that. You know, that your nuanced answer just really speaks to your expertise, I think. So I accept the it depends answer. And also, I haven't met anyone with an advanced degree who doesn't say it depends at the beginning of a sentence. So it's totally fine. I think one of the pressing questions then becomes, okay, let's say I am an entrepreneur. I have control of my schedule. I can block out time for a nap. How do you help your brain shut down enough to actually take it?
I call them micro rests throughout the day. And I tell them, every 90 minutes of your work, go and do something else. Put a timer. Give yourself 15 minutes to go do something else. Don't think, don't do anything. Don't nap. Just go do something else. One of my patients, I love it because I always go into like creativity and art and all that stuff. I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, well, he owns like all these companies and he manages a lot of the financial part, right? Lots of numbers. So I taught him to do those little micro rest moments in the day with drawing and doing something creative. And I tell him, you know, once you learn how to do, if it's pencil drawing, then go pick up some kind of clay and like play with it, right? When we go into those creative, restful moments, now when you shift back to this like, you know, numbers and really calculated kind of thinking, it becomes easier. In these cases where they're very like black and white thinking, you know, they tend to be into mathematics, right? So I go, remember when you were solving a problem that you were like, you know what, I'm going to come back to this later. It's the same idea, right? You come back with it with fresh eyes is what we hear this term. No, your brain just rested from that activity. And now it comes back more creative. So solving that problem becomes much easier. So to prepare my brain for napping, I teach them to do little micro moments in your day and put a timer. Don't pass more than 5 minutes, right? Maybe 15. right? I tell them stay within that, 5-15 minute. If you need to go to the bathroom, and also a big one, do not take your phone. You put a timer and leave it on your desk. Don't take your
Okay,
phone.
so you're saying scrolling does not count?
No,
Oh,
that does not count.
okay. And I've heard like I'm taking a nap, but you're watching TV. I
Right.
assume that also doesn't count.
That does not count.
Okay.
No. It's
Okay.
go, think of, the great scientists that they would just sit out there and look up and do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Go and do nothing. And if you want to do something creative, something artistic, obviously don't take your phone. There's no creativity whatsoever in doom scrolling.
Yeah. Well, I love that because I've experienced that. I'll have a lot of stuff in my office and maybe meetings, and it's all on the computer. It's all screen related. And then I feel like compelled to run outside and like put my hands in the dirt and like, maybe deadhead some flowers, or, I'm lucky in that way that I can easily just step out the door and I'm there. Not everyone is, which actually that's a good question. What about for the people listening to this who work in a corporate setting and they don't have agency over their schedule? Is there any version of this for them?
Listen, most people today run to their phone the minute they get a break. They do take breaks. And if they're like really, and I tell them, be honest, be honest with yourself. Don't you just stop your work every once in a while because you're just tired of it? And you grab your phone and start texting somebody or start doing something with it. Don't do that. Do something like this. People are already doing it, right? So yes, some of us that have the ability to like work from home, right? We could do a lot more stuff than they can. But again, most of the clients that I have don't have that ability, and they have to be at an office doing something all the time. I'm like, well, you can go in the corner of your office and draw, get on the floor, think like a kid, like go and play for like 15 minutes, right? Is it weird at the beginning? Yeah, it's going to feel weird because your tendency, your body is like, no, grab the phone, right? It's cheap dopamine. Don't do that. Don't throw your dopamine that you need after you take that 15-minute break, right? Do something with your hands that has nothing to do with any kind of electronic. If you have a puzzle nearby, keep working on the puzzle, working on it a little bit at a time. Whatever activity that allows your brain to be creative, go and do that for 15 minutes. And not just once, several times during your work day.
So we could call that like a waking nap.
You can call it that. I like that.
Great. I love that. Good. I've heard that you should drink a cup of coffee before you nap, and that will increase the effects of the nap. Is that true?
I can't say that I have heard that or read that. Caffeine decreases blood flow, right? It constricts arteries. In that moment, I don't want restriction of blood flow to my brain. On the contrary, because that bath that we gave it with a cerebrospinal fluid is what it did. It has to come out through the blood, right? So I want nice and good blood flow. Caffeine is something that we've been abusing. It's actually the most abused substance in the world. We are thinking that it's our magic bullet to work harder and to give me clarity. It can enhance clarity because it gives us a little boost of dopamine, but it's not something that I recommend doing. This is still my coffee from this morning, and it's 3:42 p.m. I haven't finished it. And this is coming from a Cuban who used to drink, 4 coladas a day? And if you know what a colada is really served for like 4 or 5 people. I used to drink 4 of them.
Oh my God.
Right? So,
no.
So I'm telling you, this is also from personal experience. Caffeine is not the answer. I actually wouldn't recommend it, especially around anything that we're going to be resting, that we're going to keep our brain in this mode of like creativity and like just chill.
What about these like nap studios? Is this a thing in Miami that you see popping up? I've heard about them in Japan. I have a friend who owns a yoga studio in Colorado, and she does yoga nidra, which I realize is not like sleep exactly. It's kind of like a deep meditation practice, but you are laying on the floor. It does look like you're sleeping. But these sorts of things are like a sleep salon or a nap salon. Is that a real viable answer, or is that just like a, capitalistic trend on a very human need?
Yeah, that's just, no, they just want your money.
Okay.
Is it a good idea? Now, why did it start in Asia? Because those people were being trained to work excessive amount of time. So for them, those, napping studios, whatever, it's because they was actually trying to sleep because they weren't. And that's where a lot of the burnout studies came from, because people were literally dropping dead because they were overworked in these countries. So it became popular, but because it became a need for them, right? I think for us, in our country, I don't think we need that. I just think we need to improve how we sleep and create our own routine for prioritizing sleeping. We talked about napping today, but it's sleeping, right? It's resting. It's getting my brain to say, let's chill for now. Let's take a break. And I need to just literally close my eyes. We live in a time that we're just thrown so much stimulus that as simple as closing our eyes, forget about sleeping, just closing your eyes to stop from so much stimulation coming through our eyes really just calms down our limbic system. Our limbic system controls our emotions. It regulates our anxiety. So just by doing that is you get some benefit from just not having so much stimulus going into my brain.
What a great way to wrap that up. And I'm a very visual person, so I kind of like see your ideas in my brain as a picture. And I just pictured it as like a big circle, like a sphere. And really at the center of it is our nervous system. And it's all about that balance and downregulation, which is countercultural to our stimulation and go, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. Oh, how are you? I'm busy. Oh, that must mean you're good, kind of attitudes in the world. And okay, so if I was to summarize the benefits of napping when you have good sleep at night, so we've got burnout prevention, memory consolidation, mental health regulation, and stress resilience. Am I missing anything?
Dementia prevention.
Dementia prevention. Okay.
Which I guess it can go under the umbrella of just prevention. The brain, we only have one, and we got to take care of it. We don't have a way to get a transplant. So these are things that obviously have detrimental or great positive effects into our life, depending on the health of our brain. So I love that you said that in the center of it is our nervous system. Yeah, it is. Our nervous system controls every single organ in my body, but it controls my personality. It controls my decision-making. It controls how I see the world, how I see my life. And if we don't have that well regulated, life is going to be a disaster.
So well said. You're in Florida. Can patients who are also in Florida but not in the Miami area work with you virtually?
Yes, I usually work as a consultant and within those cases, and I work with their team. So a lot of times they get on the call too, and we're all together and they give recommendations and we take it from there.
How can people stay in touch with you and the work that you're doing through your clinic?
They can go on our website. We also have our magazine, which is a wellness magazine, and I always write about a lot of these things in it because I think they're important for our life. And on our website or social media, all these areas, they can definitely keep learning.
In the magazine, is that the White Butterfly?
The White Butterfly Journal, correct.
Okay, I'll link everything in the show notes. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. I am going to announce right now that I'm going to start a napping practice or a waking napping practice. I may have to start with that, but you can follow up and check to make sure that I'm being honest.
I like that you said that because that's what I was saying earlier about you have to create your own and start with something, right? Once you start with something, then we work on the rest of the routine and then things are falling into place.
Perfect. Thank you again. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you've loved a couple episodes of the show, help me let others know by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Just share where you're listening from and why you liked a certain episode. If you're listening on Spotify, you can't leave a written review, but you can leave a rating, and that's equally appreciated. And if you liked this episode, you'll also like the one with the Harvard-trained psychiatrist asking if your food could be the cause of your anxiety. That's episode 247. And stay tuned next week for a debate episode featuring a cyber psychologist and a tech entrepreneur as they discuss the ethics of grief bots. Until then, keep it curious.